Welcome back to the Fuzz Digital podcast. Today we are joined by Regardt from NAG Magazine. You're one of the leading tech magazines in the country.
Gaming and tech magazines. One of the few left, actually.
Yeah, you guys actually did the annual edition, which we have right here.
Now twice a year available. Working on the next one.
Working on the next one already. Any sneak peeks?
No. You're going to have to wait and see. There's going to be a lot of Easter eggs, a very cool cover story, very cool artwork. That's what I can say. And a lot of cool content in there, 100%.
Great. Looking forward to it. But I think today we're going to be diving deep into the sort of NAG Magazine journey, your journey, and then sort of just touching base with that. So thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for being here.
So I think, unfortunately, we can't get any sneak peeks of the new mag, but tell us a little bit about NAG Magazine, how it got started, your journey there. Give us a little bit of insight.
Sure. That's a 20-year conversation. Are you ready for it?
Break it down.
24. Yeah. Okay, now we won't go into every day. How long do you want this podcast to be? That's the question. NAG Magazine was started in 1998, and it was really born out of a need by a bunch of geeks they saw a need for sharing the information. Back then, there was no internet for mainstream use for most people, and there was ability to come together and do something cool for gamers that's never been done before in that sense. I mean, we had magazines around, or there was magazines in South Africa, but they were mostly imports, I wasn't involved in the early days. Len Neary is one of the founders there. He's still the publisher today. So, 1998 is when it was started. Slow but really exciting beginnings to kind of what you see NAG Magazine to be now. I joined the company in 2002, as a technical writer. I was writing for another magazine at the time called SA Computer Magazine. That's where I kind of cut my teeth in the writing industry. And I absolutely loved that job because it was writing, but hardcore tech. Some business stuff, but it was really about CPUs and memory, but very technical. And then we had all the other cool kind of content around it, like interviews and stuff. Great times back then when magazines was in its prime. And then at one of the events, I met Len Neary. And I loved NAG Magazine. It was one of my favorites. Also, it was young at that point, right? So struck up a conversation and managed to get myself in there as I pitched a roundup, a monthly roundup that I did. I went under a pseudonym back then, Tom the Tool Man Taylor. I thought it was very cool. But because I was writing for SA Computer Magazine, they didn't want to know that, I don't know, I'm writing for somebody else, I guess. But back then also it was very isolated. Everyone was very isolated. I ran that column for many, many, many years, that feature actually, just group testing sound cards, mice, CPUs, GPUs, monitors in my little room, taking photographs as best I can. It was humble beginnings, but it was a long time ago. And it was a phenomenal job even back then, being able to call your job just playing with the latest hardware.
I think that was the dream job for many people. Like for me, reading NAG when I was growing up, I was like, how do I get into this? Because you just play games, you just play around with tech. Like that's all you do every day.
It is a dream job. And I mean, now a lot more people are getting into it. A lot more people can call themselves content creators and just have their own face out there. But it's very special to be able to call NAG your home. Yeah. Because NAG is such a big entity. It's bigger than all of us, right? We're kind of just part of this beautiful machine and trying to do the coolest things we can with it. And that's very unique in a sense of how we can create content, how we can get our voice across to all the other gamers. I don't think anybody else is in that position from a publishing house point of view. Yeah. Now, I don't want us to take that we don't take that for granted because that's a very special place to be. It's a dream job. Yeah. So we're very lucky in that regard. But it's hard work, don't get me wrong. It's very hard work.
Now, over the years, like gaming has grown. Like we've seen NAG grow into from magazine to digital, gaming has grown. How has NAG adapted to sort of the changes in the gaming industry?
Yeah, look, the change in gaming industry and the tech industry abroad, and then the media industry on top of that, the last decade has been an absolute roller coaster that I don't think anybody wants to go through again. Yeah. The funny thing is, and the reason why we bring NAG Magazine back is that there's still such a huge demand for print at the moment, even though it's kind of an old format. But coming back to your question, keeping up with the times has been tough because nobody really knew back then what was the right decision to go. Do you go for print? Do you stay with print? Do you do website hard? Even website, in a way, in NAG's early days was neglected. We didn't really look at websites until very late in our kind of history. So it was a very slow adaptation. I still feel like now we are still very slow to adopt to certain things, but it's not because we can't. It's just there's just so much at stake with the brand, right? We can't just pivot quickly and do stuff. We want to make sure we maintain this entity that we have. And because there's so many voices involved, it's not easy just to say, okay, cool, we're going to do this. Yeah. Sometimes I would veto and just say, okay, cool, we're going to have to do it like this. But, and I think that's our way it should be. We need to think about our changes, right, and how we implement it. So it's been a hard struggle to get to this point of just being adequate with video. So we have also big growth plans for video. But getting to this point has been almost 10 years in the making. I remember having conversations with the previous publishers around video. This was 2008. Like, we should go into video hard. But back then, it was a difficult sell because it was very expensive. Didn't have access to any of this technology.
Yeah.
Microphones were... I managed to get a podcasting board after that request so we could start doing podcasts early, which was another fascinating chapter because we were very early with that too. And it was amazing to be a part of just doing something like this. It was this new frontier. So we certainly had our hand on the pulse of everything, but we just couldn't. Even now, it's difficult to say, let's go daily video. We were joking about it before the show.
Yeah, we were chatting about that.
There's just so much involved with just creating good content, or at least get the stuff out that you want to get out. So we're working on it every day to adapt. And I think I'm very happy with where we are. If I look at the last 20 years of NAG's evolution and what we can kind of bring to the ecosystem today. But yeah, we're a small team, so we're trying to do a lot with what we have. And kudos to my team because they are really pulling out all the stops and making this happen with all my demands.
Yeah, I think if you actually look at how big the NAG team is and what you guys have been able to do up until now, that's amazing. I think a lot of people think it's like a big office, like hundreds of people in there. And then like, oh no, that's actually a very tiny team, and you guys are actually like working really efficiently. So
yeah, we're just 2.5 writers, and I'm the half. I don't get full time to write because I focus a lot of time on the video. So
you're sitting here doing podcasts,
doing other things, meeting people. But so the team, Cody and Ariel, really awesome. And even with the magazine, if you look at the content, they are really, because they're also long-time fans, and they were involved with the industry back in the day. And again, this is what NAG is. It's not just something that you can necessarily just apply for and get a job like you would normally do with anything. Yeah. To get into NAG, you'd kind of need to be around and then fall in at the right place when there's opportunity and you're speaking to one of us at the right time. And I think that's how it always goes in video, in any kind of media entertainment industry. To get those big breaks and to get in, it's the right place, right time. And it was 100% like that for me. And I would say 99% of the staff we've had over the years.
It's almost like you need to have that sort of passion for NAG, have that sort of enthusiasm for it, and then right place, right time, and then
exactly. But even now with content creators too, it's so easy to create your own voice. But there's so much noise out there. There's so many people who's trying to, and it's good. It's good to have that. But I don't know how strong NAG would be if we were just a startup now. You know what I'm saying? If we were a website that started now, it wouldn't have been the same game for us.
Yeah.
We kind of got in there early and we established ourselves as one of the people still have NAG magazines around. Everybody's got good memories about it.
I also have a few still from back in the day.
And it's amazing. It's the best place to be from creating content point of view because we know that the audience loves the brand. But now that pressure's on for us to create better content for them. Coming back to this conversation, we're all trying to learn and kind of how do we get the best out of good video
and keep all the diehard fans happy with all of the changes.
And a small team. I don't think I can throw any more at the team at the moment.
So we know that the gaming community is like very passionate. We've seen it in different aspects. What do you think are the opportunities for marketing towards gamers? And what do you think, how can brands sort of effectively communicate towards gamers?
Yeah, that is a good question because it's like the $1 million question. How do the brands get access to those communities that would ultimately buy their product or that would want to be part of the brand community? And equally so, gamers, I guess, want access to more cool things, right? So it's a kind of a good place to be. But for brands to get access is a very difficult thing if you're not doing the right thing that's really from a gamer-centric point of view. If you're trying to do it from a corporate point of view, people are going to see through it, gamers are going to see through it, and not going to latch on to the idea that you're trying to sell them. Again, that's where we're very fortunate in that's what we exude that lifestyle with everything that we do, with the people that work there. It's a lifestyle rather than a job, right? We don't do this because we have to. We do this because we don't want to do anything else.
And you also understand the market that you're actually aiming towards.
Exactly. So when we're talking to brands to do cool things, right, we're coming at it from what would gamers really want. And they don't always like the ideas we pitch, but we know that those ideas work because we've proved that they work.
Yeah.
So for brands to get involved, it would be get hold of the right communities and speak to the right people to get your message across. I mean, what you guys are also doing now is very much brands hands-on trying to share that message. So you need to have really good script writers and people that understand and can make the right concepts for the campaign or how they reach those audiences happen. But the reality is you have to be in there. I mean, obviously advertising works. I mean, punting nag, you can be a part of that community or with content creation, but the authentic side of a brand being involved with the gaming industry, you just kind of start at the basics.
Yeah.
Get involved with competitions or giving gamers access to things or running competition. Esport competitions are great now. We're doing a lot of awesome work with Medal State, and you can run a competition very easily, and you can get some good brand exposure on that. It's not always cheap, but you're going to get a dedicated set of gamers. I think gaming broadly, then speaking as well, when you're talking about the other guys that are just casual gamers, is probably a bigger part of the audience.
Yeah,
and that's the one where people. That's the one to get involved in, because these are the guys that playing 1 or 2 hours a night. If they've got a family, trying to get away from the work stress, play some games, we can play with friends. And these are the guys that I think are the core part of the industry that brands are looking at, because they often have the spending power. Kind of the older generation, if I can put it like that.
Yeah, it's funny. The other day I also had a discussion we saw the Pokemon Le Creuset collection, and it was like the millennials and people growing up now finally have money. So all these brands are like, how do we get them to spend their money? Because they're not spending their money on average things that our parents spent money on. They're spending it on, what did I used to grow up with? Games, Pokemon, all these sort of brands and franchises, and they're just like throwing money at it.
Nostalgia is huge, and the reason why it's huge is because there's not been that much forward-looking excitement in pop culture, generally speaking. Yes, movies, games, we have it. But if you look back, the memories you bonded with your Ninja Turtle figurines or He-Man figurines or whatever that may have been, that was done at a core part of your life. And I think kids growing up today have that same experience with current pop culture things. Yeah. But for us, the yearn for that is it's a very nice pick me up, right? You kind of go, this excites me, and this give me kind of nice excitement to play that franchise of the game or feel connected to it when I pick up a new title, like a Tomb Raider title or something, and then all of a sudden, PS1, man, the days.
The good old days when you thought graphics looked good.
Yeah, exactly. Now all that you worry about is the patches not happening properly, or games not performing as well as they should based on what they were promised at launch, so
100 gig day one patches, just trying to launch a game. Not sitting there for 2 hours waiting for it.
We didn't have patches back in the day. It was just, you get what you get, right? And,
got what you got. Zero DLCs. You buy the game, you get everything. There's no added extras.
Exactly.
It just worked.
But in closing, just for brands, I mean, I think gaming is everything now, the entertainment industry. Everybody's a gamer. I think when we started NAG Magazine, not everybody was a gamer. Gaming was very much an outlier sport,
Yeah.
Our parents didn't understand it. Maybe today's parents also still don't, but I think it's more acceptable in a general way, right? If you see what kids have access to. So it definitely is the right community to get into. So no doubt about it. It's just, if I have a clean answer for you, right, then we could all be rich off that. But it's a very difficult thing to understand exactly what to do from a brand's point of view to make sure you hit those targets 100%. It's a case-by-case basis.
No, for sure. I think that's what you said. There's no clear-cut answer, but do you guys have one specific one that you could potentially give us, like an example of one campaign that you potentially either pushed hard for or just something that you knew was going to work and that worked out really well?
There's been a few. I think the one that always stands out for us that we love to use as an example is we pitched it with a few phone brands, and we did it with Samsung ultimately. I think it was the S23 launch, where we created some content around giving people the device to play a game with an objective, get a score, finish a track, whatever that was,
Yeah.
and then give them money as a prize. People absolutely loved that. The community engagement we got on the day on the floor or on the ground was huge. A lot of people were queuing up to kind of be part of this video. And the content we got off that was also amazing because it was real natural excitement from everybody that was involved. And that ultimately created some very nice footage and people responded to that. And we got some really nice feedback off the back of that. But the key there was product was in the hand of everybody who could experience it.
Yeah.
And obviously gaming, because everybody there was gamers. So, gooi them a nice challenge of a game that they don't necessarily know, even if it's something as simple as a Flappy Bird, right? Or something as difficult as playing PUBG Mobile.
Yeah.
That worked well. But mobile in general, people latch onto that. And it worked very well for us.
Yeah, and especially if you put out the challenge of like beat the score. Gamers are like naturally competitive.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, they want to know what's the high score and how do I beat that?
Yes, 100%. So the track, the laps, kind of the racing games where you kind of set a track time was very, very popular with that as well. And generally speaking, people can play it. It's not always the most difficult mechanics to get used to. So it also works well for that.
So this is now a good way of like how you guys are keeping content fresh. But how do you like keep it fresh in general? Because once again, you guys are evolving. How do you sort of keep the tech and the gaming content exciting for people to watch?
I want to say it's a difficult question, but it's really just keeping up with what the latest stuff is. And unbelievably, there's always something to talk about. News-wise, there's so much news we don't cover because there's just too much happening out there. But we're just keeping up with some of the stuff that excites us. And I think this comes back to the passion of what you do. If you're trying to do it too clinical and just go by what the chatter is out there, you miss a lot of the actual news and a lot of the information that's actually happening with the communities or with the products and the brands and the games. So for us, it's very much that. If my team doesn't live gaming, if they don't play games all the time, on weekends they play games. There's a lot of stuff they do in terms of gaming and board games, and it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
For me, it's mostly hardware and some gaming, right? So we tinker with hardware, tinker with electronics, and then the gaming. So we live and breathe it, and we kind of keep our eye on the pulse. And then the trick now is to hone your skills and pick out those trends or those gems in gaming potentially. Hardware is easy to spot, but what is the next nice game to play? What's the next good indie game to play? AAA titles, again, easy to spot. Are they going to be good or bad? You don't know. But that's very much what we're trying to do. So show people what are the cool things out there to spend your money on or play for free when it comes to gaming. So you have to live and breathe it.
So living and breathing is the reason you guys get to sort of the trends in gaming and esports and all those things. So how do you sort of see it? How do you recognize, and what do you think are sort of the next trends going forward?
It's kind of how excited makes us feel. I mean, having done this for many, many years, me and the team included, you kind of see through things that don't excite you anymore. Obviously, we need to be, also need to see it from both sides. So there are sometimes times when we look at something that we don't initially think it's super hot, but we know that, it needs to be spoken about. But if you're looking at trends where we're just trying to find what's the next big and next hot thing, I think VR has always been lingering. VR, AR has always been lingering, and it's difficult to call now when that's going to get its big break. But there's still a long runway with that technology because it improves every year. Obviously, AI, I hate using that word, but everybody's talking AI now. Computex was full of AI. Everybody's doing AI, but computers getting smarter. What we can do with our computers as tools. Gaming is going to become a lot more interesting once we have NPCs who are AI driven,
And we saw that with the NVIDIA launch somewhere last year or this year early, where they had NPCs that can actually interact with what you're saying and not just have a set menu of words or sentences that they say. Yeah,
they could become their own little, AI information stack. So if you program this thing to be a peasant from the 17th century, you don't want them to start talking about Tesla cars, right? So you can really hone in, and when this becomes a commercial technology, we'll be seeing that. When you walk around a game, it'll have so much more life, and who knows what that unlocks in terms of the intelligence and the scary side of it when these things become a little bit more intelligent, and it unlocks things within the game that you might not have programmed initially, right? Storylines that could unravel because you kill this AI, the AI's brother, it would naturally affect him if it's programmed as an AI character. Well, how would that then affect the rest of the storyline? That's going to be very interesting to see from a gaming point of view. From hardware, there's so much. There's so much to look at. If you're a geek, memory technology is changing. The memory chips, you can have different memory chips on your board now. That's not going to be your DIMMs that you put in. It's going to be a little little flat SIM-like slot, like a notebook RAM slot. That's very exciting because it means it's just kind of a new technology for us to be excited about. The speeds for RAM is going to be much better. Monitors, pricing coming down is also very nice and exciting because as technology gets better, you can still get away with a 12th gen Intel CPU, for example. You don't need to buy the 14th gen necessarily because the technology is so good. So yeah, I mean, we have a very good time for all of this stuff in terms of what to buy, the direction of where technology is going and what's accessible to us. And I guess in closing, I would say handheld gaming is also going to be big. Mobile phone gaming is already massive. But mobile handheld gaming device like emulators and things, that's a huge and up-and-coming market for South Africa specifically.
Because even now, Apple has unlocked the ability to emulate on iPhones, which is something that's never been done before. Usually Android devices were your emulation devices. But now being able to game on iPhone, like if Apple is unlocking that now, it's probably sending a message. Because even with the 15 Pros, gaming was a big thing for them. Like it's one of the big announcements. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, the games you can play AAA titles on it. Obviously, it needs to support it. There's not that many titles that's on there. But I saw on X, on Twitter the other day, somebody managed to run GTA 5 on an Android device, high-end Android device.
Okay.
At 60 frames a second.
Jeez.
And he gave all the files for you to do so. Obviously, not endorsing piracy there, but I mean, it's available. You can do it. And the ROM side of things, the same thing. I mean, there's so many good old games that's still amazing to play, right? Put that on an older phone or on one of these game pads, and you're going to have a really good time because there's so many games out there. It's an insane amount. You will never get bored.
Because even the ROG Ally, the MSI Claws, people are using them for emulations of PSPs or PlayStation 2s, PlayStation 1s. You're sort of just getting that nostalgia from this handheld.
Exactly. A lot of older games and indie games are being played on those because they just generally work well. They're not as demanding, but as with PC gaming that we're already seeing, right? Indie games are such a huge part of it. Early access on Steam, it's massive. All those people don't mind getting involved with the game early on if it's playable, and they know that their feedback is going to be taken into consideration.
Yeah.
So, we're living in very exciting times from gaming if you're looking for stuff to play.
No, for sure. I think, and it's evolving so quickly. What would your sort of big advice be for companies if they want to start getting involved in gaming and gaming communities? What's that sort of advice you would give them?
Difficult question. Like and subscribe.
Obviously
get involved with people in the industry, right? There's a lot of people that's been around for a very long time and they've got the big communities. Influencers, obviously, I would say sparingly. There's a lot of good content creators out there that's independent, but there's a lot of them out there, right? So you want to associate with somebody that your brand can kind of associate with, right? Would you want that person to be part of your brand? Do they have the right demeanor? Do they produce the right content for you? So you have a lot of option if you can find the right people. The trick is to find the right people when you do it, right? It's not just always about numbers. And again, we spoke about this. Quality of the content over quantity of the views is always what I would advise. So
and sort of getting through the noise that you also said earlier. There's a lot of noise going on, but how do you get sort of the right people?
Yeah, exactly. If you can't resonate with the brand, look at the numbers to a degree. But again, numbers isn't everything. The interaction with that person probably will give you a good indication of how solid their community is. But I think outside of the box thinking, I guess this will be where I say that'll be an offline conversation. But there's a lot of ideas that need to be custom made to the brand. It's not a one size fits all. Right? Yes, we can set up tournaments. Yes, we can do advertisements. We can do content. Those are all kind of the basics. But what is the brand going to get out of that at the end of the day, and how are they going to reach the right audience that makes me want to go, oh, I like this brand, or actually I want to buy this product if I see a need in it. So it's very much a case by case basis. But like right, if it comes to broadcasting equipment, if you want to promote a light versus a microphone, you can do so many cool things if you know what the brand wants to achieve off the back of that from just their brand messaging point of view. Yeah. And that's where the exciting, but that's also where the golden IP lies. There is no one size fits all.
Yeah. It's you need to find the brand, you need to find the situation, you need to know who they're talking to, who's going to buy this, who needs this, and why do they need this? And it's all of that sort of coming together to give you that golden thread of this is how you do it.
And then sprinkle a little bit of how do we make this go viral? Which, again, right, there's no golden formula there.
Viral is always the key word. But thank you so much for joining us. I think having this chat was really, it's been insightful. I've seen just sort of the NAG side and thinking what it was to actually engaging with you guys and seeing what you guys are really doing, who you guys are. It's been amazing. Where can people learn a bit more about you guys? What do you guys have coming up that's exciting?
Definitely our main point of contact is the website. It's been the same since 2000. Actually, no, it's been the same since 2004, I think. Yeah, so we've had it for a few years. But nag.co.za, that's where everything will get linked. You can get links to all our social medias there, but all the main content gets published there. NAG magazine comes out in end of July and then again in December. So you can keep on the NAG website for that as well, the announcements and where to buy and all of that juicy details.
And I'm assuming that will also be shared on socials.
Everything goes onto our social media as well on all the platforms. We're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Maybe less so on Threads. I don't know. Does anybody use Threads?
Yo, I was there the other day. It's a barren wasteland of nothingness. But apparently still some people are on there. So
I want to love all of that. I just have a finite attention span to manage all of these platforms.
You need to choose like 2 or 3 and hard focus, and then the rest you sort of just sprinkle some stuff there every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. Sounds so easy.
If only it was. But yeah, thank you so much. Really looking forward to the NAG magazine myself. Thank you so much again for your time being here and sharing everything.
It's been awesome having a chat. Thank you for having me.
No problem.